Good day. My name is Tom Popcheff. I'm the president of the Speedway Redevelopment Commission, and I'd like to welcome everybody to the Monday, July 23rd regular session of the commission meeting. What I'd like to do is introduce everybody that is at the head table. On my immediate right is Gordon Rundle, who is the vice president of the commission. To my immediate left is Brody Duncan, commission member, and to the left of him is Rhonda Schwartz, secretary of the commission, and on my far left is Dr. Terry Reed, representing the Speedway School Corporation. And on my far right is Tim Gropp, back from his many travels out west. He and his family had a great time, as I could tell from the photos that were taken on Facebook. And it's good to have you back in town. I hope you can stay awake because of that 3-hour difference.
It's been a little rough this afternoon.
Well,
so.
I'm sure it has been. I'm going to tell you, in the audience, we have Tim Ramian, Executive Assistant Property Manager for the Commission, and Mark Griffith, who is with the Veritas Group, and also contracted with the Commission to do some oversight on our Wilshaw Project. And we have one member of the general public, Jennifer. It's a pleasure to see you here this evening. So I have established that we've got a quorum, and proper notice was given of the meeting in advance. So I would like to go ahead and proceed with the next item, which is our public comment. So if there's anyone in the audience that would like to give us a few of their thoughts and comments, please come to the lectern. Jennifer, well, thank you. It's good to see you here.
Mr. President, Commission members. Just wanted to take a second and to thank y'all for hosting the public input session for the 2500 North High School Road property. I also want to thank the engineer and the developer for all the hard work that they put in. When I was there speaking with them, they seemed really knowledgeable about all the site conditions that we're working with out there, but also we're very cognizant of us being a small town and kind of our goals and needs for that property. So hats off to them for some good work. I do have to say I was a little disappointed in my fellow neighbors. I thought there would be a little bit better turnout at the input session. It's such a good opportunity for us. I don't really know how many in the next decade, how many times we're going to have an opportunity like this to provide our input for a publicly owned piece of property like that in Speedway. So I really had kind of hoped to see some students there and kind of get a broader sense of what people really want to see there at the property. But I would encourage anyone who maybe wasn't able to attend because they had another conflict in scheduling to reach out and talk to their council member or any of you all if they have any ideas for that property. And a question for you guys when you get to it on the project updates, if y'all would share kind of what your plans are with the input that you got from the public, what you're hoping to, how you're hoping to use it, and if you're hoping to share it with the public or anything like that. So thank you so much.
Great. Well, thank you, Jennifer, and I appreciate those comments.
Just a quick note on that as well. We just received a comment card back today, which Tim incorporated into some of our numbers. So, yes, feel free if you haven't had a chance. We still have all the maps, and we'd welcome any additional comments as we continue to develop on that site and get a final plan put together. Absolutely.
Yeah, we still have time for any public comments, and I share some of your concerns, Jennifer, about the turnout. However, I was a little more surprised with the number of individuals that did show up and spent the time talking to our engineers and our consultants. And thank you for your comments about our selection. We feel very fortunate that we've got some very top-notch individuals that help support the town of Speedway and our development initiatives. And we did get a lot of feedback. We actually had quite a bit of feedback from Facebook, social media, and I understand that social media is somewhat prevalent in today's society. Not that I am an expert in that field of communication. I do rely on my wife quite extensively for that information, and she does a very good job in vetting that information and channeling it to me, which I share with the staff. But there was also a live streaming video on Facebook on the Speedway Wise Guy, and I know this sounds like a promotion for the Speedway Wise Guy Facebook page, but it's Alex Wiseman, I believe, who is on the Speedway Advisory, Arts Advisory Council, and very engaged, and just a very fine young gentleman. He was trying to get that information out through any media outlet that he possibly could. But we still have time, and please encourage your neighbors to feed information to us, ask questions. Any of the commission members, or staff, and the town council, we would love to hear their thoughts on that potential development. So, and thank you again for your comments. Any more comments from members of the general public? Sit down. No. Don't rush to the lectern. However, we have no further comments, so we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the consent of our meeting minutes for the executive session of June 21st, 2018, and our regular session of June 25th, 2018. Those minutes have been previously distributed and reviewed by commission members, and any suggested edits were memorialized in the copies that we have just received. So were there any other suggested edits, comments, corrections? Well, hearing none, we'll go ahead and accept those by consent. And Mr. Ramian, thank you very much for compiling those for our approval. The next item that we have on our agenda is the approval of our claims, and that has just been distributed to us. So if you'll just take a moment or so to review the listing of claims. And please, if you have any questions, Tim would be more than happy to explain that.
Yeah, we apologize for not getting these out ahead of time. Our clerk treasurer is currently out for the next couple of weeks, and he was able to prepare these for us, but we were not able to get them out ahead of time. So, couple notes down there. There is you'll see the second line. There's a American Structure Point bill for $3,500, and it's for a project that was quite a while ago, prior to my time being here. So there were a couple bills that were sent as they were cleaning up old files. Apparently, we had a nice conversation about it, but ultimately these were services that were rendered and need to be paid. This one happened to be ours for some survey work they did, but we made it very clear that this is to never happen again, that bills need to be submitted when it's made and they need to be paid, because this is quite a ways out of what we were anticipating. We were not expecting this. We thought that had long been closed up and done, so.
No late fees, no interest charges on that invoice?
No, amazingly, so.
Okay. Okay, well, that's good to know.
The other, everything else is pretty standard as I've looked through, mostly Brixmore. A note, and I'll have to follow up with you, we did receive some information from Brixmore that we actually have a credit on our account where we have paid more money than our rent is. So we're going to look into that and find out why that, it's not by a little bit either, it's a pretty significant number, so.
Will that offset the American Structure Point?
It will, definitely, absolutely. So we're going to look into why that happened and make sure that we do a correction on that. And then we should have some credit in there. So that's good news. Well, not good news that we overpaid, but good news that we have a little bit sitting out there. And then if you look on the back, there's a lot of big numbers there. Those are obviously your bond payments for the July bonds that were due. So we received, I think we reported it last time, we received our TIF draw in June and had sufficient funds to cover our bond payments in July, with just a little bit left over. We did get a chance to look at our TIF neutralization for 2019. We had a few questions prior to it being submitted to the auditor, so we're hopefully last year we had kind of a big miss up at Speedway Marketplace that we caught after the fact, and it was able to be corrected this year. We were able to get in front of that and just had a few notes, so looked much better this year.
Well, good.
So everything's going okay.
Tim, anybody on the commission have any questions of Tim regarding any of the expenditures on the list? Well, then I'll entertain a motion to accept the Register of Claims. Do I have a motion?
Sure. Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the claims as submitted.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's take it to a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move on to our project updates. And the first project that we have on our list is our Wilshaw Project, located on the northern section of Main Street near our roundabout. And we have Mark Griffith with Veritas here to give us an update.
Good evening. So we'll just start with the apartment projects. The north structure is moving along quite well. The MEPs, mechanical, electrical, plumbing trades are moving through the building pretty quickly, and we're seeing drywall starting to go in and getting finished as well. Paint is actually scheduled to start this week in that north building, which is really exciting. The other good news is the south building is under roof. We've got windows in. The sliding doors should be on site. If they're not, they'll be here this week. And that building has really come out of the ground. So CRG's done a fantastic job in trying to make up their weather delay issues, as well as some of the material delivery issues that they ran into earlier on in the project. The overhead utilities, been working with IPL on that project and getting an update on that. They were supposed to have gotten a bunch of that work done this week, so I need to circle back with them and get an update and let you know.
Yeah, I can give you a quick update on that. So they made a lot of progress last week. If you haven't been down there, they took down the lines across USAC,
Yep.
and USAC's doing their project as well. So they installed a new pole at the property line, and they'll clean that up a little bit more. But that enabled USAC to start their work. They immediately took down the big banner, which is pretty shocking. They'll be cutting some windows into that. They were supposed to be out there today, but because of the storm damage, their team got pulled off. So they're hoping to get back to it as soon as the storm damage is all cleaned up and they can move forward. We did authorize them to pull the pole out of 16th Street next to Wilcox's building, which was an option, and we authorized that last week.
Great.
Okay. The hotel, most recent word is that Loftus Robinson's waiting for an appraisal to come back, their final appraisal to come back for financing. So that is the update that I have for the hotel. Any questions?
No, not from my standpoint. Any questions from the rest of the commission members or staff?
I think we're still hoping the hotel gets their construction financing in place next month so we can get going. We're still waiting on a timeline from Pepper Construction as to what their construction schedule is going to be. Some of that's dependent on them being comfortable to start the process. I
Right.
think.
We did reach out to Pepper Construction this morning. They have a schedule that's for the project. They're just kind of waiting for a start date. They have been talking to the GeoPeer contractor to make sure that they're lined up and ready to go when when the financing does go through. So I'm also going to try in the next week or so schedule a job site tour for you all to come out to the apartments and get your eyes on that
Good.
project.
Okay.
So I'll keep you posted on that.
And we
Steve.
anticipate being ready to close on the bond about 2 weeks after construction financing in place.
Okay.
So we've taken as many steps as we can. There's still a few check boxes we need to do from our last meeting, but
But nothing,
essentially, until they have that in
insurmountable.
place, we need to be ready to go, so there's not a delay after that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, the next project update we have is the 2500 North High School Road project. And I believe Tim is going to give us just a brief overview of some of the raw data that we've received. We're still in the process of compiling all the information. And Jennifer, please do encourage your neighbors to express any of the comments or suggestions that they have. We still have time for that input, and we welcome that. We certainly do. And we will be as transparent as we possibly can. This information will be published once it's, fully vetted, compiled, and assembled in such a format that is easily understood. So, that is our intent, and that's our commitment from the commission. So, Tim, if you go ahead.
Yeah, I want to echo Jennifer's comments that I thought our consultant team did a really, really good job there. For somebody just walking in, it was a lot of information. Some of it, if you're not in planning and development, it's probably complicated. And so, Bill Butts, our engineer on the project, did a really good job explaining the site development process and the hurdles that we have on the site. And then Shelby did a really nice, and then also Fred Prezo did a nice job explaining the development process. So we ended up getting, I think it was 55, was our number? 55 people to the event, which I was pleased with. You'd always like to see more. It's hard to get people to come out to these type of events unless it's really controversial, right? But no, it was a good turnout. We have since then also received several other cards. We've received Facebook comments. We've received a couple emails, and then also, as you mentioned, Speedway Wise Guy.
The Speedway's got, Alex.
Had about 50 followers on his Facebook Live and people checking on that one. And we actually took all the comments off of that and incorporated them into our numbers as well. So what we have put together, Tim Ramian's done a nice job while I was off in California having fun. Thank you, Tim. Kind of putting together the different categories of what we heard feedback on, how many said they were in favor of something going in there versus not in favor, and then actually documenting all the different comments. I would point out just a few things that stuck out. I haven't spent a lot of time looking at this. As Tom said, our hope is to take this information and kind of make a few pie charts or kind of decipher this so it's a little easier to read and see what the feedback was. I don't think there was any major thing that came out of here. I would say probably the biggest ones were there really is not a huge desire for a lot more retail out in that area. That was one that was pretty clear. I think everyone understands there will be a little bit, but it needs to be specific and don't overwhelm it as a retail center. Many people felt we have enough retail with what's gone in across the street and down with what Brixmar's trying to do. So they don't want to see a lot more retail there. Grocery, there was very much an interest in having another grocery store in town, in particular out in that area. And then restaurants, it was kind of 50-50. There were a lot of comments on restaurants, both for and against, and it kind of ran the gamut between what kind. So I'll have to look at the comments a little bit more in there, but we had, just for reference, we had 17 people in favor of more restaurants in that area and 15 that don't want to see any more restaurants out there. So, and hotel was interesting. It was generally in favor of hotel being out there, but only if it had conference space. The things we got to look at in that case are generally hotel operators are not building conference space without some kind of help. So we just have to have more conversations and vet that a little more to see if that is an option or not. But a couple other things I'll just point out real briefly, and like we mentioned, we'll try to get this out to the public. Whoever gave us emails, we'll try to email it to them at the meeting, but we'll also put it on our website as well, so it's accessible. Entertainment, seemed to be some desire for some kind of entertainment destination spot there. The ones that aren't really buildable, the one that sticks out in particular was making sure that it's a little more, what's the good word, user-friendly. So leaving enough right-of-way along Crawfordsville Road to have a multi-use path that then can connect down to our crossing there. Making sure we incorporate walkable paths and make it user-friendly so it's not just car-heavy parking lots everywhere. So, making sure there's some amenities there for people. So that'll be a balance of how we design everything, but I thought that was a really good comment back in there to make sure whenever we do negotiate for the next step, that we leave enough right-of-way to be able to do some amenities and allow for bikes and pedestrians to get around as well as vehicles. So we'll analyze that a little bit more and get some user-friendly documents out there and continue down the path. But we do truly appreciate everyone that did participate. As we've said before, if you didn't get a chance to come to the meeting, you can always stop by our office, contact one of the SRC members, or just simply send us an email with some of your comments, and we'd be happy to incorporate those in and take a look.
Yeah, and Tim has all of the maps, diagrams in his office, so if any of your neighbors would like to stop by and review those again. And Tim has enough knowledge of the total development of that site that he can speak to any of the total development costs. And a lot of people don't realize, how much it really will take to get that prepared for a future development. There are some challenges there, but they're, again, not insurmountable. So, Tim, thank you for that brief update. Any further questions from the commission regarding the input?
Anything that stuck out to you on the information?
I thought there was a lot of good comments, both for and against different things that night. So again, like you said, anyone that wants to provide more input, please do.
Great.
Yeah.
Good. All right, so let's move on to the Gilman Street parcel update. Tim?
Yeah, so this has taken much longer than anticipated to get to a purchase agreement. I think we're really close. There's just a couple last paragraphs that we need some input from the SRC from, so we'll pass that around, and hopefully we'll get that signed in the next week or so, which then just starts a due diligence period for them, although we've done a lot of that due diligence, but we'll hopefully have that turn around, but most likely you won't see anything until next year on the building at front.
I was going to say that's a 90-day due diligence.
60-day.
60-day due diligence period.
So
That the purchaser has the opportunity to.
hopefully it goes a little quicker than that. As we said, we've exchanged a lot of the environmental data. The survey is completed now, so we'll get that to them as soon as possible. We've not withheld anything. It hasn't officially started on the due diligence, so hopefully we'll get that wrapped up, though.
So as soon as that purchase agreement is executed, that due diligence period will commence. So-
In the interim, Wendell's team has had to do a little work. We've had to spray for weeds and do a few other things, so we had a little bit of expense due to the delay. We thought we'd be a little further along, but
Okay.
we'll get there.
Good.
Want to make sure we get it right.
Anybody else have any questions about Gilman? Great. Last update on our agenda is the 1300 block of Main Street.
So, as we've talked about, we have a developer that's continuing to work on some plans. We're hoping to get those in front of, have that developer propose or have a public meeting to kind of get their concept out there and their proposal, not their proposal, but mainly their concept and everything out to the public to kind of take a look before we really engage in any kind of proposals from them. So we're hoping to do that next week, or not next week, next month if possible.
Okay.
We'll talk a little bit more about that, but they'll probably, we're shooting to hopefully have them go to the town council actually and kind of put out some diagrams and some posters of what their concepts are and just get some feedback from the council and the SRC before we move forward and see if it's something we really want to do or if we're not on the right track. So I've liked what I've seen so far, but it needs to go before we really want the public and the council and the SRC to see it before we say this is the right deal that makes sense here.
We certainly do.
So hopefully we'll be able to get some more information out to everybody next month and then go down that process when the time comes. In the interim, there's nothing else. Hopefully in the next 90 days or so, they'll start working on some of the environmental cleanup we've talked about around the Arts Center.
Great.
So,
Okay. Anybody have any further questions about the 1300 block?
No, looks good.
Great. All right, thank you, Tim. We have no resolutions on the agenda this evening. We have one new business item, and that is an authorization to proceed with some due diligence by staff for a project that is known as RPM. At this stage, we cannot divulge a lot of details about this project, but it does involve a potential development within the town limits of Speedway, Indiana. And Tim, if you'd like to maybe touch on that a little bit better.
Sure. The SRC has spoken about this project in executive session. It's way too early to divulge any details, but we do need to do a little due diligence to follow the state process. There is a chance we may need to acquire a property, so we need to do 2 appraisals as well as some asbestos reports and maybe even a phase 1 to see if it makes sense to add this as part of the project or not. So we're not authorizing any offers or anything. We're just authorizing me to kind of get all the documents in place that if this project does move forward, that we'll be ready to go, because it will be a little time sensitive once that trigger gets pulled. But as it currently stands, it's too early to make that decision. But we want to make sure all these documents will take at least 30 days. So we want to get that started if possible.
And I do want to emphasize that at the appropriate time, certain elements of this project will be divulged, but now is not the time for us to do that. So what I'd like to do is entertain a motion from a commission member to give our Economic Development Director the authorization to proceed with due diligence for Project RPM. Do I have a motion?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the authorization to proceed with the due diligence for Project RPM.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion regarding this authorization? So hearing none, let's go ahead and take it to a vote. All those in favor of granting the authorization to proceed with due diligence for Project RPM, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
No old business on the agenda unless anyone has an item they'd like to bring up from the past and previous meetings. So hearing none, we'll move on to the director's report. Knowing that you've been out for a week with family, I know it may be a brief report, but if you can stay awake, please share that information with us.
The only thing I'd add tonight is the Ross Dress for Less grand opening, I believe, is July 27th,
That's great. That's
which
great.
I believe is Friday.
It is Friday.
Friday.
Correct. Yeah.
Still on California time.
Still in California.
There are no days out
They have
there.
the same days.
Yeah.
And it's
Just one
still-
sunny day all the time.
And it's still Monday. I keep getting reminded of that
Yeah.
continually. So, anything else?
That'll
Okay.
do for
Mr.
today.
Ramian, did you have anything to report?
I was going to say, Mr. Gropp was going to provide some vacation photos on a slide carousel, but he didn't have them ready in time tonight, so,
Oh, that's a shame.
yeah, we just couldn't get it together. I know the public would like to see those.
That was in 35 millimeter format?
Yes, they are.
Oh, okay. Great.
Oh, no.
Well, before we adjourn, does anyone on the commission have any statements, comments, information you'd like to share with the mass of general public that are in attendance this evening?
The next chamber event is the Jazz Festival, but that's not until September 21st at Daredevil.
Okay. Well, I want to thank Tim and also Tim Ramian, as well as the commission members that were able to attend our public input session for 2500 North High School Road. I think that's going to be an exciting project. I was pleased with the comments that we'd received. I certainly hope we can get more comments from members and citizens of Speedway and stakeholders. I think it's going to be an exciting project, and it'll be able to, develop an area of town that is really kind of our doorstep. I mean, it's, the threshold of Speedway, and we want to do it right. We want to make sure that it's unique, and also that it meets the needs of our citizens. Now, we're not going to be able to meet everyone's needs. I think everybody realizes that. There are going to be proponents, there's going to be opponents, but we're going to try to do this as open and transparently as we possibly can. So, Jennifer, again, thank you for your comments. I appreciate your attendance and also appreciate everyone else's attendance. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I think we have consensus. Adjourn.